Hey, what's going on, everyone? Nobody Famous here again with another Ableton Beatdown video. Shout out to MachineMasters.com for providing such a great resource for producers out there. And if you have any questions about anything, feel free to hit me up on Twitter at NobodyFamous, or you can leave a message or comment in the comment section underneath the video, and I'll try to check back and respond to you as soon as possible. This video actually is in response to a question about sub bass and 808s and things like that. So I'm just going to show you a couple of methods that I use. There's really no right or wrong way to do it. You just got to figure out something that works for you, and these are just a couple of ways that works for me when it comes to like deep sub basses and 808s and tuned kicks and things like that. So I'll let you hear just a little quick snippet of the beat, and then I'll show you how I basically get that sound. Alright, so that's what it sounds like. This is what my MIDI clip looks like, okay? So I'll play it without the music and just solo it. Okay, so that's basically the entire loop right there. So how I got that sound was I created a I pulled in a sampler track, and then with the sampler I have some construction kits that has a bunch of 808s in it already, like tuned. And the cool thing about these days is that there's so many, like, you know, dubstep, trap, dirty south construction kits, that a lot of times that these kits will come with tuned 808s already in them. So as you see, I have a bunch of different ones right here, some C's, some E's, blah blah blah, like all the way through. Just go through and listen. So a lot of times they sound decent. You just might have to put a little bit of processing on them. So usually what I like to add is like this one knob fattener, and this is a Waves plugin. This is third party, and the same with the C4 multiband compressor. So these are just two of the ones that I use. I use a couple ones in Ableton as well, just depending on what sound I'm going for and how it's meshing with the rest of my beat when I'm actually mixing it. But to use one of these samples, if you have like a kit that you find or you purchase one or whatever, whatever key that it's in, and hopefully it does tell you the key that it's in, when you drag it in to the sampler, all you have to do is come down here to the root key and match that. So if I drag in this E, I need to make sure that my root key is at E. If I drag in this C, I need to make sure that my root key is at C. And then the next thing I'll do after I drag that in and I have my root key set is I go to my filter global settings. I'll change my voices to 1 because I don't want them to overlap. I want it to basically re-trigger the sample and cut off the previous one, choke the previous one. This should usually be -12 for the volume, so I'll change that to 0. And then I'll turn my release all the way up so it plays through the entire sample. And then I'll add some processing to it, and that's pretty much it. Usually what I'll do is I'm layering like a drum sequence that I already played in. And that has a little bit more high end, but not a lot of low end, because I want to get all my low end from my sub bass right here. So when you add those two together, and when it's just the drums and the bass, it doesn't sound that great. Like that kick doesn't sound that great, but it's just that high end. It's going to kind of poke through the mix a little bit, and that sub bass is going to sit down there and rumble really nice. So that's one way I do it. Another way is still with the sampler as well, and this is just a different setup that I have, and I have saved it, and I can just always drag it in. And this bass effect tools actually comes in Ableton, and then the L1 Ultra Maximizer is another Waves plugin. But this sample is actually 10 seconds long. It's just a sine wave that I created. If anybody's like familiar with Cool Edit Pro back in the day, they actually had like a generator in there where you can create different sounds straight from like the program. So that's kind of how I learned like about sub bass and creating like a tuned 808 or sub bass, is that you create a sine wave at a certain frequency, and it's in C. So when I have my root key set at C, I can basically, it basically works the same as like these 808 kicks. So I'll show you what this one sounds like by itself. And then the same thing with the filter global settings. You can change this to 0. You can even turn it up a little bit more. I have my voices at 1, and then you can play with the release. So like if I have the release really short with this, and you can see I kind of brought down. I shorten the length of these notes so that you can get an idea of what it's going to sound like. But when I shorten the release in the sampler, it sounds like this. It's going to basically cut off instantly. And then as I extend that out, so you see you can play with it and do a lot of different things, and all this can be automated as well. So that's a couple of ways that I get some 808s and sub basses going in my beats. A lot of synthesizers too are going to have just a patch, a preset that's going to have a sine wave. So if you play it in a lower octave, it's basically that's going to be a sub bass, and then you can play it and this will be tuned as well, and you can adjust the release on it, and then layer like a kick on top of it. Like usually, sometimes they don't have a lot of a punch to it, so I'll layer. That's why I'll have like the kick and the sub bass hitting at the same time, so that way like peeks through the mix. So you're not hearing just sub bass, but you're actually hearing like some sort of kick in there as well. And that's pretty much it. So that's how I get my sub basses. Again, NobodyFamous on Twitter. Hit me up, follow me, and all that kind of stuff. And shouts out to MachineMasters.com.